both some of the top AI experts in the world. Should we be excited or scared about AI?
I would say 9 out of the 10 paths are leading to a dystopian world in AI right now, even with AI agents. I totally agree that if you ask a person on the street, it is going to sound very dystopian, but we have to work very, very hard, to usher us towards that shared prosperity that we hope we'll achieve.
But Ramesh, as someone who's really leading the charge here, I know you're an academic institution, but 9 out of 10, that are terrible odds.
These are definitely terrible odds, unfortunately. And that's true, has been true with a lot of technologies in the past. And sometimes it's taken 10, 20, 30 years to, again, bring back the middle class and share prosperity in those revolutions. Unfortunately, with AI and AI agents, we won't have the time to think about it after the revolution has already started. So we had to do it while we are in the middle of this revolution. If you think about centralization versus decentralization, in the 70s and 80s, you had mainframes and you could use a dumb terminal to talk to it. And then we had PCs on our desktop, which was great. But then it came up all this responsibility that I have to use Norton antivirus and I have to update my software. So we all became responsible for our own security. That was not the case when we used the mainframes. And the same thing is happening now. We're kind of running our own agent. So suddenly I need all these other security companies to help me to make sure my agents are secure, which is a great direction. It's great for the economy, great for entrepreneurs to create new solutions going from this mainframe era to PC era. If I can use the analogy of the Nokia N95 versus the iPhone, there was a potential for many amazing apps to emerge on smartphones about 2005, 2006 timeframe. But the problem was nobody solved the issue that some of the slide-loaded apps are not very secure. And so we gave up, as a society, we gave up the opportunity to have this very vibrant ecosystem of apps, and we settled down on iPhone, even before Android. It's like, you know what? We're going to give up the decentralization and rely on this highly centralized walled garden of iOS because they give us security. So this is a very critical moment, Julian, because if we don't solve the safety and security of billions of agents on open agentic web, then unfortunately we'll end up getting into new forms of agent stores where only a few companies will effectively provide agents for 8 billion people, maybe 3 or 4 companies, and will say, you know what, I don't really want this amazing innovation that's going on all over the place. I'll just use this very constrained walled garden that these few companies are providing. So there's a trade-off between security and decentralization, but it's a false choice, and hopefully we can achieve both at the same time. And so the goal for Project Nanda is to really provide all those frameworks. As I said earlier, like if I'm talking to my hospital, I'm talking to my doctor, I need to know who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to my bank, if I'm talking to my family, I really need to know who they are. Just like when I'm using a website, if I type yahoo.com, I know it's really yahoo.com. And it's magical, everything that happens behind the scene to confirm that you're really on yahoo.com. The browser companies, the telecom companies, the ICANN, of course, Yahoo itself, has to all work together to provide this secure framework. And, it might sound kind of very esoteric and kind of behind the scenes, but if we as a community won't do it, we will end up in this very closed walled gardens very soon. And the whole dream that OpenClaw and LangChain and CrewAI, all these other amazing companies are building their own agents, will remain constrained to these few platforms. I think I'm very hopeful that this shift from centralization to decentralization will allow the global South to participate in the AI revolution. So we're going to see kids in developing countries, nurses, who couldn't afford anything else before, participating in this AI agent economy, and that's going to transform the lives in remotest parts of the world. I think the scary part is going to be if things get centralized and this becomes a battle between haves and have-nots, and there are only, it races to the bottom and only a few winners emerge. So winner takes all. Winner take all is my biggest fear right now.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I also think that, these agents, are going to allow a lot of children, teenagers to actually get education, and maybe they can this agent serve as mentor, to help students overcome challenges and maybe get into good universities and just pursue education. And, accessibility is, again, as Ramesh mentioned, to run an agent is pretty cheap if you're running it locally. If you just have hardware, right? You just need to pay for electricity. So hopefully it's going to be available for like most people in the world. The biggest fear is, again, security. Like if people don't create guardrails, if people don't create good infrastructure, right, then a lot of agents or a lot of people are gonna get in trouble, right, if they use those agents irresponsibly. And of course, there are gonna be a lot of hackers who try to like find all those security issues and expose them, right? And the idea is like not a single company should just create like an infrastructure for it, right? Not a single company should just say like this is where you create agents and this is like how you use them securely and kind of scare everyone into just using their technology, right? We just need to work together towards creating different kinds of components of this whole infrastructure so that, maybe I can choose like one out of like 10 security companies to secure my agent, any hardware device, any OS system to run it on, any LLM, right? It needs to be open and users have to have a choice.
For us to get to the 1 out of 10, what do we do?
It has to be an open conversation. I think everybody has to realize that the pie is going to get even bigger as opposed to trying to slice the pie as it is right now. And if organizations and countries start carving out their current pie, it's not going to help anybody. The pie can get so much bigger. There is literally trillions of dollars of economic value. There's health, there's education, all can be done better. So there's regulatory issues. There are open source and nonprofits that can play a role. And Julian, what you're doing right now on this podcast, we have to be aware. We should not be sleepwalking into this glorious future without realizing there are a lot of risks to do this right. So I think the awareness, education, regulation, open source, nonprofits, all of them have to play a role right